Hello, in this podcast we're going to be looking at diseases of the immune system. We will understand the common diseases of the immune system. In particular, we're going to be looking at allergies and AIDS, and we'll look a little bit at a couple of the autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. First, allergies. And an allergy occurs when the immune system treats a harmless substance as a pathogen. And you also need to know that an allergen is a substance that causes an allergy. An allergen is an antigen. Over here we have a chart that shows different types of allergic reactions, things that people are allergic to. It can be caused by skin contact, for example, latex gloves, and I believe in school the gloves that we use are actually latex free, so if you're allergic you don't have to worry about that. Poison plants like poison ivy, actually it's sort of different from the others in that what happens with poison ivy is that the poison in it binds to your skin, and so that your skin is no longer treated as a part of you, so your immune system attacks it. That's why if you ever come in contact with poison ivy, it's best to immediately wash that off so you won't get a reaction. Once you start getting a reaction, it's actually too late to wash it. Something can be injected, like a bee sting. You can eat something. Some people are very allergic to nuts. Or you can inhale something like animal dander or pollen are very common things. And here I'm going to show you a video showing an allergic reaction from one of these, from a bee sting. And this is something that actually was from a TV show.
Keep calm, bees. And it's trying to fight that temptation to swat at them when they're on your hands. Look, it's on my forehead. Forehead, go away. Go away. But he's got one stinging. Look, one of them's got me just up here. Here, can you see it? Can you pull it off for me? Try and get the little stinger. And that's what you want to pull out. You go and see that, and that's where they deliver it. But you know, one sting for a load of honeycomb isn't too bad. It's been quite a brute of a bee sting, this. It's made all of, you know, this part of me swell up. I feel a bit like the Elephant Man. It's actually quite hard though to see out of this eye. It feels like a bit of a price to pay for a bit of honey. But if you risk nothing, you gain nothing. The irony is, out of all the massive, lethal, aggressive man-eating crocs and snakes and alligators I've dealt with over the years, the one that gets me is a bee. It's typical.
Here's how you become allergic. It's 2 steps. First one is sensitization. This takes 1 to 3 exposures. I'll explain why at the end of this slide. Basically, you're exposed to an allergen. It's treated like part that's not self, so that your immune system goes into action against it, and it's eaten by a macrophage or a dendritic cell. Just like it would be a pathogen, it gets broken up and displayed on the cell membrane of the macrophage. Then it goes and finds the correct type of B cell. The B cell then will send out antibodies. Normally this should not be happening because an allergen is something that's harmless. It's not a pathogen. But the antibodies go out and they go onto mast cells. The thing which would cause the symptoms, which don't happen here, is when the mast cells release histamine, and we'll see that in the next part. Now, the reason why you don't get a reaction is because the antibodies have to release the mast cells, And if there are not enough antibodies on the mast cells, it's not going to be released, and you won't get a reaction. This is sort of the opposite of when you have with diseases. With your first exposure to a disease, there you get sick because you don't have, you're not producing enough antibodies to combat the pathogen. Here, when you're first exposed to an allergen, you're not getting symptoms because you don't have enough antibodies, so you don't get a reaction. Once you have enough antibodies on the mast cells, then when you're exposed, you'll get an allergic response. And what happens is it releases histamine, and histamine causes an inflammation that can cause the itching, it can cause the rashes. All that's histamine, and normally that type of thing is needed to combat an infection. But there's nothing there that's harmful, and that's why this is a disease. So what can you do? Well, you can take medicines like antihistamines, and you also can avoid exposure to the allergen. So if you are allergic to nuts, then make sure that you don't eat any nuts. If you are allergic to something like pollen, then really the only way you can avoid it is by living in a place where that plant doesn't grow. Like if you are allergic to pine trees, which produce a lot of pollen in the spring. If you're allergic and get an allergic reaction in the spring, odds are you're allergic to tree pollen. You have to live someplace where those trees don't grow. A good place to live would probably be something like New Mexico, where the trees that live here you won't find there. Worst case scenario is anaphylactic shock. That when someone is extremely sensitive to an allergen. Now, when does this occur? Why does this occur? It occurs because the mast cells release histamine abruptly. You get this massive dump of histamine in the body that causes the blood vessels to dilate very quickly. It's sort of the opposite of if you are, like, for example, if someone has like a garden hose, when you sort of squeeze the part of the hose, you squeeze the hose a little bit, it goes out quicker. That's higher pressure. When you open it up, then it goes out a lot slower, and so that happens with the blood, and the blood pressure goes down a lot. If it goes down too much, then a person can die. The way it's treated is with an injection of epinephrine, also called adrenaline, and that will counteract the shock by causing the blood vessels to constrict. If someone is susceptible to this, they always have to carry an EpiPen. Here I have a video showing you how an EpiPen is administered.
Hey everybody, it's Leslie Harmon from Allergy, doing a little video for you this week about the EpiPen. And I have an EpiPen trainer here in front of me. I've never actually fired off a real EpiPen before, but I'm going to do that today. So hopefully you don't witness me stabbing myself accidentally with an expired EpiPen. Even though it's expired, I'm sure we'd still have to go to the emergency room. EpiPen trainer. This is an epinephrine device for emergency allergic reactions such as the bee sting, latex, peanut, and if this were a real one, I wouldn't be using it to take off my fingers like this because it's got a needle in it that I think's about that long and it would stab right through. Number 1, pull off gray safety release. Number 2, jab black tip firmly into outer thigh so it clicks, and hold on thigh approximately 10 seconds. I don't know if you heard that click, but I had to push it in hard enough that it feels like I'm going to get a bruise. Now if I were really administering this to myself or to someone else, I would be counting to 10, slowly, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, etc. until I got to 10. And that's all you do. That's all you do. Go straight to the emergency room, administer Benadryl or other antihistamine, whatever your action plan is, so you follow that. Okay, so now I'm going to try to do this to the tomato where the neighbor turns on his
lawnmower.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put it right down here.
Right here?
That way you can see the...
That was a loud click. And I held it on there to about the count of 10 mentally. Oh yeah, it's not quite as big a needle as I thought it was. There it is, and you can see it's still got some juice in it. Alright. So you knew those unused tomatoes were good for something. If you have any questions, You can contact me at allergyware, ALLERGYWARE, gmail.com. Visit the website, allergyware.com. Thanks.
Okay, next we have AIDS. AIDS is caused by, it's a disease, stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. It's caused by a virus called HIV, Human Immunodeficiency Virus. This is a pandemic. It's one of the largest in history, and it's killed more than 25 million people. In the diagram here, this is a picture that shows a white blood cell. The bluish-purple specks that you see on it, that is the HIV virus, and there it's emerging from the cell. Now, how does AIDS kill? Well, over here, if you look at this diagram here, I showed you this diagram in another vodcast, and here you see the helper T cell. Helper T cell's job is to basically activate the third level of defense. It activates the killer T cells, which go out and kill the viruses or the pathogens that are inside cells, and the B cells will produce antibodies. The antibodies kill the pathogens or attack the pathogens that are free-floating in the body. HIV prefers to infect helper T cells, even though it will affect other white blood cells as well. And without the helper T cells, then the immune system won't work, and you can lose your immunity to certain diseases, or if you're infected by a disease, then someone who has AIDS just won't be able to use the immune system to fight it. So AIDS is deadly because with the immune system not working, when most of the helper T cells are dead, that means the person cannot fight disease. They can't fight cells that become cancerous, and that will eventually kill them. So why is there neither a vaccine nor immunity to it? Because think about it, when HIV first attacks, you've got a healthy immune system. Why can't you just fight this thing off in a week like you do the flu? And the reason why is because the virus mutates. And remember what we were talking about with something like the flu or the virus. That mutates also so that after we get over the cold, we can come down with another cold because of the mutations. You can end up with a different antigen in a cold virus, and then you come down with it and become immune to that particular one, but you can't be immune to all of them. HIV's mutation rate is faster, so that it will mutate and will produce a strain with a different antigen before it gets wiped out. So you've got a huge war going on between the immune system and HIV and going on in the body, where HIV keeps evolving to become resistant to the antibodies that are attacking it. And that's the same reason why vaccines so far don't work. We don't have a vaccine. We don't have something where part of the HIV we've identified where it will just stay the same long enough for us to wipe it out. And that's why there's no cure. But we do have medicines today that are able to treat it. And these antiviral medicines, what they do is they suppress viral replication. It slows down the reproductive rate, and that allows the immune system to recover. People, therefore, will be able to extend their lives much longer and have a much higher quality of life where they have HIV but they don't have AIDS. Unfortunately, as the virus mutates, it evolves very quickly and it can become drug resistant, and that's why people have to take a whole cocktail of drugs, because that HIV virus in their bodies hopefully won't become immune to all of them at once. But even so, they have to be monitored to make sure that the medicine keeps working. And if it doesn't, they have to change medicines. Another kind of disease are autoimmune diseases, and this happens when the immune system is attacking the body's own molecules. One kind is called rheumatoid arthritis, and here the B and T cells can cause very painful inflammation of the joints. Another one is lupus, and there the immune system produces antibodies against part of your own body. And lupus, it mimics other diseases, so it's hard to diagnose it, and also it's caused by environmental factors. Here are the concluding questions for the vodcast. Number 1, what is an allergen? Number 2, what is an allergy? Number 3, Why are there no symptoms with the first exposure? Number 4, what chemical causes allergic symptoms? Number 5, what is the difference between HIV and AIDS? If you notice in the concluding questions, I have just allergies and AIDS, and the reason why I have just those two is because it's only those two that are really going to be covered on the Regents exam. So I'll see you in class tomorrow, and I hope you learned a lot in this podcast.